Welcome to Urban Knife Guy, where we discuss knives for city dwellers. Today we're going to have a look at the cold steel Air Lite and see if it makes for good urban EDC, that's everyday carry. This Air Lite comes in two versions. There's the drop point and the Tanto blade. I decided to get the Tanto blade because I don't have one and I wanted to check out how good this particular knife is. Cold Steel is a well-known US company and they're known for making really strong knives and their innovations in locking systems for knives, such as the triad lock, which this particular knife features. So let's open it up and have a look. I've got it cut open here. So it's basically a pretty simple cardboard box, but quite a bit of information all around. And inside we have the knife in a plastic bag, and it also comes with an extra pocket clip, which is nice. Let's take out the knife from the bag, and there you have. This is the Cold Steel Air Lite Tanto. So I decided to get this particular knife because it was marketed as a very lightweight knife. So even for its size, it is pretty lightweight, and that's due to the design and the construction. So generally Cold Steel is known for really large knives, very tactical knives and hunting knives. So this was designed really in response to making their knives a bit more lightweight, a bit more EDC friendly. So this particular knife has a thumb stud and it opens up like that. You can't really flick it open, or at least I can't, and that's because of the triad lock. It is a lockback system in a sense, but there are modifications. You can see how high that backstring actually rises up. I'll talk more about the specifications in just a bit. Now let's just have a look at different sizes of knives to compare it to. So this is a fairly medium size to large knife, or at least for me. Let's compare it to the Para 3 from Spyderco. Obviously that is smaller, but that's a well-known knife, so it gives you an idea of how big that is. The Victorinox Soldier blade is almost as long, obviously not as big. We have the With Armor Gent, which I reviewed previously, and the blade length is about the same. And over here we have the Civivi Conspirator, and that also is about the same length, and this is an even broader blade, and as usual an Altoids tin. Let's have a quick look at the specs of the Air Lite Tanto. The blade length is 3.5 inches long, the handle is 4.5 inches long for an overall length of 8 inches. This blade style is known as the American Tanto, very obvious in terms of its double bevel and just the way it's angled and cut in. The stock of the blade runs the entire length of the blade, so this makes it very strong, and the point especially is very strong, meaning this knife is great for stabbing tasks, although I'm not sure what you'd stab in terms of an urban EDC task. The blade thickness is 3 mm thick, so that is pretty thick, and the steel is AUS-10A stainless steel. So this particular steel is a Japanese steel and is produced by the Aichi Steel Company based in Tokai City in Japan. AUS-10 steel is one of the best mid-level steels used to make good quality knives. It has good edge retention, toughness, hardness, corrosion resistance, and wear resistance in addition to its affordability. But we'll talk about price in just a bit. AUS-10 is the best type of steel under the AUS series. So there's AUS-6, AUS-8 and AUS-10, and it's the best thanks to its high carbon and vanadium content. In terms of blade steels, I think the best comparison is with 440C, but this is actually slightly better because of the vanadium. Let's talk about the handle of the knife. This is G10 and there are no liners, which makes it quite lightweight. You can see actually the profile is very thin as well. Now the weight of this knife is 3.2 ounces, and that's pretty light considering the length and size and thickness of the blade. So a lot of the weight is reduced because there are no internal liners, and this G10 material is also quite thin. Now it is not so thin that you can actually press and flex, although it does feel pretty thin in the hand. But I'll talk about the Ergos in just a bit. The locking mechanism is a Lockback, but it features the triad locking system. So what is this triad locking system? So it was designed by Andrew Demko, and it uses a unique combination of features that makes it really strong. So it responds really well to both positive and negative pressures. So one of the biggest things, right, I guess the innovations to this Lockback is a pin that is inside the knife, or inside near the locking mechanism. So this is a stop pin. And what happens is the blade actually catches, in addition to the back spring, the usual back spring, it also engages with the pin. So the stop pin buffers against and redistributes the force pressure from the blade. And there are other features that work together to make this a really strong lock. And I'll give a link in the description so that you can check it out. There is a pocket clip, and it's a tip upright carry. Although remember, they do give you an extra clip, but you can really just switch this around, so it's ambidextrous in that sense. And in terms of deployment, you can use one hand because there is a thumb stud, but you can't flick it open, and that's just due to the strength of the triad lock. This particular knife, although designed in the USA, was made in Taiwan. So let's talk about the Ergos. So that's the thing about this particular knife. When I first had it in my hand, I felt it was really thin, much thinner than I'm used to for knives, especially a knife of this size. And I was wondering what the purchase is and just how confident am I in the feel. And I think it's purely psychological. I don't think really it's not going to fall apart in my hand. No way it is. In fact, there's been stress tests done even on YouTube. Check out this video by Joe X. He really put it through the ringer, and he does so with all knives. And this knife, I think the handles definitely kept up. The locking mechanism did not give way. What really broke was the knife, and that was due to the weak point, due to the screw, which creates some weakness within the blade itself, so it actually broke off there. But the handles itself, still very strong. I think it's a nice grip, not much of a hot spot, but I will have to put this to the test, I guess. I will bring this out to the field in terms of a tropical jungle for a hike trip or a camp trip and try it out. And what I'm interested in doing is to compare it with other knives that I consider quite suitable in this area. In this case, the Victorinox Soldier and even the Spyderco Para 3. I want to just feel, there's only so much we can do when we are feeling the knives at home and even for urban EDC tasks. But the way I look at this knife, this is a great camp knife or hike knife. I'm not so sure as a EDC in terms of carrying it, let's say, to the office or just going out and about. One thing I like to say about this particular knife is the weight distribution, just due to the nature of the design, right? Because of the blade, it's thick, it's heavy, and the handles are so lightweight. I do feel it's very front heavy, and every time I just release my grip, I almost get the sensation it's going to tip forward. Unlike, these other knives, which obviously are much more handle heavy in this case because they're multi-tools. But even for this Para 3, this is not the lightweight version. But I just feel this feels more secure in my hand, at least. And this is just with initial simple EDC tasks and just feeling it out here. But as I mentioned, I will be bringing, in fact, these 3 blades and more out in the field to do a test in a future video. So how would you carry the Air Lite Tanto or the Air Lite Drop Point in an urban EDC scenario? Well, I think you could just put it in your pocket. It is pretty long, it is pretty wide, but it's very slim. So you could just slide it in. I don't think there'll be a problem. There is a pocket clip, although it's not deep carry. You could also probably use some kind of a holder. I've got the Art Company Rambler holder here, and I believe it should fit the knife. Yep, that would go in because it's pretty wide. You would have to think what else you could fit in here. Typically, I would carry a flashlight and a pen, but probably you could just put a pen in here, and that would make quite a nice EDC organizer type of package if you do not want to carry the knife loose. Overall, this is a very well designed and constructed knife. And if you're looking for a Tanto style blade that is lightweight, I think this is actually pretty good. The only possible negative point, and this is a criticism that quite a few people have, is the price point. So the MSRP is $99.99, so basically just under $100 US, although you can get it about $80 from various dealers. So at that price point, for this particular steel, this AUS-10, even though it is a good steel, this seems like quite a high price to pay for this particular steel. You might be paying for a combination of things, from the design to the lightweight aspect of it, the triad lock, and a pretty good steel, but that is still quite a bit of money. At $100, this would be almost just out of budget territory, and Cold Steel did produce this as a budget-friendly urban EDC knife. But for that price, you probably have other alternatives. But if you're looking for the features that this particular knife does offer, it might be for you. So the golden question is the Air Lite Tanto a good urban EDC knife? Well, personally for me, I think this is a bit too much for me to bring out every day. It is a really large knife. To bring it out in social settings or even just the public, this might seem too big and aggressive, although it does look a bit like a utility knife to the uninformed. So I guess it depends what your job is. If I were to work an event where I'm doing event setup and I will need to be cutting through cords, rope, and maybe plastic wrapping, I think if I brought this knife out, I don't think anyone's really going to bat too much of an eye. But if I'm in an office environment and I just need to use it for light EDC tasks, this might seem overkill. Personally, I see this, as I mentioned earlier, more of an outdoor carry knife. So if I'm going for a hike or camp, I think this would really fit the bill. In fact, I bought it for that purpose. But I also compared it, as I mentioned, to the Victorinox Soldier, the Spyderco Para 3, and I have to actually do a test to find out which would fit well in actual use. But what do you think? Do you think that the Air Lite Tanto is a good urban EDC? Would you carry this every day? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you like the content in general, please subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. As usual, keep it folded, keep it safe.